Long time no chat, right? Um, Obviously, I think I've said it. My intention was to do a new video weekly or at least every other week when I finish grading the discussions, but then life. And I try to like combine things. I've been doing stuff, but I'm finally getting this one done right before spring break. And the whole reason I'm making sure to get it done before spring break is because I had a couple of people ask me about the paper. And I had intended to make sure to have a new video posted and then forgot. And then I was like, okay, so I need to do this video for the post or the about the paper. But then I realized I also had to redo the rubric because when I last did this, it was a slightly different paper. Same concept, but part of it was different. And so that rubric no longer counts. So I had to do some changing around. And just so you know, man, I could not edit the one rubric. So I had to start from scratch. But that's okay. I got it done and I'm getting this done. So here we go. I'm going to talk about your paper. To do this, I, of course, am going to show you what we're doing. Now, forgive me when I share the desktop and you see a lot of random because you're going to see stuff everywhere. But some of the stuff might pop up, so I wanted to make sure it would cover. This should be your class. First and foremost, I don't know if anybody reads the announcements, but right here, announcements, this, I want to make sure you're aware of this. Possibly somewhere today. Today's Wednesday. I'll be posting some news articles here. Tomorrow, I plan to dedicate a couple of hours to just updating this. Last week, I never got around to putting in new news articles, and it's just there's been so much news. My brain's been exploding, and I'm trying to decide exactly what to do. But if you haven't looked at this, please do so. If you click on the link, it's going to open a new page. You click here, open a new window. There you go. So what I have done, oh hush, no, I'm not overwhelmed by too many tabs. Hello, ADHD, I love tabs. This is what I'm doing right here. So then I am sharing the news stories with you. This, the name says it all. This is where I literally just put hyperlinks. So you can go to any of these stories and go, hey, there you go. Should take you right there. There you go. News article. Then if you don't want to do these, or when you're done with those, this one is all through from the beginning of the term through February when I set up the site. These are all PDFs. So like you can click and it's going to show you a PDF right here. It's not the best, but this is how I can share the articles with you. So just do your best. I'm planning on doing this instead of posting new news articles on in your class. This way, it's for everybody. But that means at the moment, I don't have it broken down per class. So you might have to dig a little bit to find what you need. I'm hoping to organize it so it can be like American government, global politics, environment, that kind of thing. But at the moment, I'm just a little overwhelmed. Um, Not from the job aspect, but from the news aspect, because so much is happening. It then puts my brain in a not good place. So I have to keep taking breaks from the news. And that's part of the holdup. But I want to make sure you know this. Um, I titled this News Articles for Spring 2026. So this is where I'm going to keep posting stuff. But again, on the homepage, it'll show up here for the most recent. So pretty easy to find. All righty. That being said, okay, so here's your class. Now, about that paper. So if you go to content and go to the one that says papers and such, that's where I am here. If you go to the paper details, it talks about the paper. So we're going to start there. This is where I said that further details are going to be coming. This is a starting place. So this told you at the very beginning of the term to start looking at stuff. It's talking about EPA, like why it was created in the first place. Why was it made? What was its main purpose? And what is its purpose now? Because the two are not the same. That's why it says, what was it created for? And what is it currently? Then you need to take a look at what renewable and non-renewable sources are. Please, for the love of everything, do not say electricity as a renewable or a non-renewable source. Electricity is the product of sources. And for some reason, people are very lazy and they use chat to try to answer questions. And that's the idiocy that chat will give you. So please use your own brain on this one. When we're talking renewable and non-renewable, renewable, solar power, wind power, tidal power. We got a lot of stuff. Those are just the first three that popped into my brain. Non-renewable, that's going to be things like gas, natural gas, oil, coal, nuclear. The nuclear one is the one that throws a lot of people. Nuclear power is listed as non-renewable because you have to mine for uranium, and uranium is a limited source. So that makes it non-renewable. Okay, now notice here, take a look at it. Do they work? For the renewable resources, are they sufficient to handle humanity's energy desires and needs? You need to look globally. You are looking on how this affects the entire world, not just what the United States says. Very important there, because the current trajectory of where our government stands on this, you will not get accurate information if you look at just like White House pages. You need to actually make a step farther. And remember, we're talking about the world, the entire planet. Take a look. I will let you know that, yes, there are countries that have it working fully. So take a look. Then the climate crisis and global warming, you have to actually know what this stuff is. You have to have a firm understanding so you can get to the paper. Now, let me go to the next one. Papers and such. Paper info, more detail. This has been here for a while. I have now updated the rubric, which we'll talk about in a second. And then down here, it says rewatch the video provided about the paper. Hi, that's this video. So here's what we're doing. I will talk about the grading in just a moment. This, where it says paper details, literally the last thing we were just on. You are going to be writing a story, a fictional story that takes place in the future. You are to use your imagination here, but if anyone has ever read science fiction, good science fiction is based on actual science. It's based on fact. If you have ever watched good science fiction, you could see that it is logical that this goes to this, that goes to this, that goes to this. Even when they come up with something fantastical, they show you the chain that brings it there, that makes it believable. You really notice that it's not good when they just expect you to accept something. So you are going to be writing real science fiction story that takes place in the future, because you are going to be talking about what's happening there based on what's happening here now. And it might sound weird. I think it's fun. The reason for this is so many people only look at the right now. They forget that it's a chain reaction. They don't seem to think, or I guess some people just truly don't care about what's going to happen in 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, 100 years. That's kind of important because everything we do now affects everything in the future. Take a look in the past. Look at how things were. Look at how things are now. I can tell you that I have way more breathing issues now than I ever did before. I can tell you that the temperature completely different than when I was a kid. Um, I was a kid back when we still had leaded gasoline, like legit. And now, if you've ever wondered why it says unleaded instead of just gas, that's the reason. We used to have leaded and unleaded and diesel. Now we just have unleaded and diesel because they realized leaded gas was really bad for us. And so back in the day, the government listened to the science people and made adjustments. Um, that's part of what you're going to look at. So if you really want to do a good job, look at some history and move forward. Look at where we are now and then project forward. This is where that critical thinking is going to take place because part of your grading, and I'll show you on the rubric in a moment, part of it is based on critical thinking. It's thinking it through because throughout this course, we're covering a lot of topics about the environment. Your paper, your story is showing you comprehend that all of it is connected and where it goes. If you want a good example of this, not of a story, like not as a written thing, the Disney Pixar movie WALL-E. Watch it. It is technically the writers say they were not making an environmental movie, but watch it. You will see pretty much everything we have talked about throughout this entire semester will be covered in WALL-E. That is a case where they're like, look, if you keep doing this, this is where you end up. So that's what you're doing with your paper. You are writing a story, but to do it properly, you have to research. That's why all of the valid sources, you have to do the research. So sources. Now, where a lot of people will have the hardest time is you are used to using direct quotes and then putting the source at the end. You can't do that. That is what is right here. Written in your own words, no quotes. You are utilizing your knowledge. It would be helpful if for your sources, you just number them. And when you say something in your story that you're stating as a fact, just put a little number there. If you know how to do the superscript, the one that's up high, that's a quick and easy way to make it where then I know what fact goes with there. I'm going to be rather lenient about you citing throughout because when you cite during a story, it kind of takes away from it. If you really want to be like, wow, and get totally lost in the story, I will tell you, whoa, last term I had somebody who had the story take place in a classroom. And so a student was able to reference their textbook. Another one was reading a newspaper from the archives in a library. You can do things like that, or you can have it be a conversation. It doesn't matter. What I need from you is to see that you fully understand. You have to show where you believe we will be in the future. Now, if you look at the current trajectory, and I have now used that word twice, what is up with that? Anyway, if you're looking at that, it's kind of a pessimistic view. It's kind of sad. I don't know what else to say about that. It is. But if you want to be a more optimistic thing, you can actually have it be where things are better, but they got better because they learned from this. I hope that makes sense. Where it says here to conclude, you have to actually make a prediction. You have to show me what happened starting with all the changes that began January 20th, 2025. The reason I have that specific date is because that was when on January 20th, 2025, when Trump took the oath and stepped back in office, he did 10 distinct executive orders based on rollbacks about the environment. And that's what the last paper was about. You're not looking at those executive orders. You're looking at where everything is now, because so much more has happened. But that's why it's that date. I'm not trying to pick on anybody, just in case anyone wants to accuse me of that. It's literally because of how much has changed from that specific date. Previously, from there, I would pick like a different, like a company or certain rules, or just climate change in general, things like that. But this one, we have actual government stuff happening, and so you have to include that. I'm about to show you the rubric, but I want to cover right here bonus points for entertaining me. If you write a good story and you've kept up with all the rules, and I thoroughly enjoy reading this. I love reading. Let me make that very clear. I love reading. If you actually keep it all going and you thoroughly entertain me, yeah, you get extra points for that. Here's the big part right here. There is no word limit, no page limit. It is as long as it needs to be to cover everything. I will tell you, you can't do it in a page. You can't. If you attempt to, it's not a story. That would just be basically, here are some points. You ever had that where you try to drink your water and the straw? I got a new water bottle and the straw hits the bottom and then I can't get my water. Anyway, you're welcome to try to make it short, but you need to make sure you've covered everything. And it's supposed to be a story. You're literally getting graded on that part. So here, where it says proper paragraphs and spacing, dear God, I need that. If you do not have actual spacing, I can't read it. That's why that's part of it. Okay, so now if you click on paper 2026, this is the grading rubric. This is literally how the entire paper is going to be graded. Notice we have 4 different levels. Level 0 is 0 points. We are going to cover over these one by one. Recap environmental protections that have been removed since January 20th, 2025. Explain how each will affect the environment. There have been so many, I'm not saying how many. So if you cover a bunch of them, you're golden. If you covered a couple, you at least get some points. If you only covered one, you're way here. If you forget to cover the actual protections that have been removed, 0 points. And I know, don't let this be deceiving. Every one of these categories, each of these is worth, I had it calculated a second ago. Let's see if it's still here. 16.6 repeating. That means if you don't do this, you have already lost over 16 points. So it is big. Notice some of these, it's all or nothing. So politics. Only mention politics where it pertains to laws. This is not a right versus left thing. So if you talk about politics, then you're talking about the laws that are included, because that's valid. That's why we have to cover politics in environmental science, is because our government covers laws. But you can't sit there and go off on a rant about one side or another. Can you have characters in your story who are very right and very left? Sure. But I should not be able to tell which side you're on just by reading the paper or the story. I hope that makes sense. Okay, economy. This is a pet peeve of mine. Did not mention economy unless it was connected to the environment. Mentioned economy in a way not connected to the way it affects the environment. Again, all or nothing. This is one of my biggest pet peeves when talking environment, when people sit there and just simply talk about money, not looking at the big picture. This also pulls into that critical thinking aspect. If you are looking only at your wallet, you're not looking at the long picture. So the long picture is not the right word. The long view or full picture. I think those are the two that I just blended together. Anyway, oil is a limited source. We are running out of oil. That is a fact. We cannot make new oil. That is a fact. As oil gets less and less, it's going to cost more and more. Currently, we've got this whole issue going on where we're in a fight with Iran, who controls a lot of oil. And anyone who's paying attention, we're watching our gas prices go sky high because it is supply and demand. If you do not have enough of a supply, but you still have a demand, you start charging more and more. So if you're talking that aspect of we are now having less and less, so people have to pay more and more, and then you make the connection of running out of the non-renewable source of oil is causing more people to have to pay higher amounts for the oil, but we haven't changed the transportation system or the production line, i.e., how we get our groceries from one location to another. That causes all of our groceries to cost more because the transportation of the food to the market costs more. And so that is that whole thing. A lot of the dystopian future things turn water into a commodity. If you're doing things like that, you can totally talk economy. But if you're trying to say, yeah, it might not be the best, but this is worse, and you have to remember everybody needs jobs, but you have to remember economy because we need to do economy, that will get you 0 points. So please keep it relevant. Does environmental factors affect the economy? Yes. But you have to really look at it. It is not as simplified as a lot of people say. It has nothing to do with the individual job. There's way more to it than that. And so if you're going way into it, like I just said, that is valid. But if you're just talking jobs, that is not valid. Remember, environment. That's what we're talking about. Here we go. In your own words, literally has to be in your own words, no quotes. The only way you can get away with a quote is if you have a character in your story quoting something, and it has to sound correct. Like, how many people do you know who go, well, according to blah, 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 and then they quote something word for word? That doesn't really happen. Normally people paraphrase. They go, ooh, I was reading blah, and I remember it said, and you're putting it in your own words. That's what's expected. Can you do an actual direct quote? As long as you made it match the story properly, yes. But that's the only time it will be allowed. Grammatically correct. You are in college. You should be proofreading and doing things correctly. So right here, paper has been properly proofread, has no typos, and is grammatically correct. That means actually look it over. What I highly recommend to people to do for this and for any paper you ever write, read it out loud. Because if you read it out loud, you will catch so many more mistakes than if you're just reading it in your head. Also, a lot of people like to ask their friends and family for opinions, and they will hand it to a friend or a family member to read. The friend or family member gives it back to you, and you say, well, how was it? Like, oh, yeah, it was really good. Ask them a detailed question. If they go, oh, let me see, that means they never read it. A lot of people will say they read something and they have not. So if you actually want feedback from somebody, ask them a question about it. Then you'll know whether or not they actually read it. So then you know whether or not you can trust them. All right. Half points. if the paper has a few typos or grammatical errors. Bam, 0 points if there's a lot of typos, a lot of grammatical errors, or lacks paragraphs or proper spacing. So you might write an incredible story that covers everything, but if you don't have proper paragraphs and spacing, you get 0 points here. News articles. Includes news articles less than 1 month old. We have to do that because of how fast things are changing, how many things keep happening. If you are not looking within the last month, you are not current. I mean, quite frankly, you should do things within the last couple of days, but I don't want you holding your whole paper off because of that. That's the only reason it says 1 month. The most recent you can throw in there, the better. So like if you've got the whole story figured out and you wait and you're about to turn it in and you grab another news thing and toss it in there, literally what I would do just to make it as relevant as possible. Includes only news articles older than 1 month old. Some people will do that. Does not include news articles. You have to have news articles for the very reason I just mentioned. If you are not using news articles, you are not 100% current. The basis for this is what is happening right now and where that's bringing us. Validity of sources. You do not have to use only news articles. You have to have news articles, but not only news articles, because I expect you to do some web searching. I expect textbook, papers, whatever, something, because I've told you to learn about a lot of things. So I've also given you a lot of different things throughout the term. So here, used valid sources only. Use some sources that were not valid. Notice it says some. So if you use any source at all that I have told you is not valid, unless you're doing it as a quote, which I'll explain in 1 second, then it's not going to work. You will lose points here. So it says no Wikipedia. If you use Wikipedia as a source, automatically you lose points. Sadly, whitehouse.gov, unless you are saying that whitehouse.gov stated something, you cannot use whitehouse.gov because a lot of the information there is not factual anymore, according to the basic accepted science for the rest of the world. Bit by bit, our current government, including the CDC, have been told what they have to say that does not match global science, or I hesitate to use the word proven because science doesn't normally use that phrase, but validated science, tested, retested, always get the same answer, science. Our current government is deciding they want to say what science is, and they're not actually sticking to valid science. Because of that, we can't use that as an actual factual source. Was trying to figure out a good analogy, but I don't have one right now. But this means you have to double and triple check your source. So if you are not sure about a source, feel free to message me. Send me your source, the actual URL. Say, hey, can I use this? Is this valid? What can I do about? I will seriously vet that sucker out. And if it's good, I'll tell you. If it's not good, I'll know what you're looking for. And I will say, you cannot use that one, but how about this? And I will send you, if I can find a comparable article. There we go. All right. Number of sources, I already told you, a minimum of 10. You can have more than 10, but you have to have at least 10. So if you have at least 10, you get full points. If you have 6, at least 6, then you get half points. If you have 3 or less, you get 0. So there we go. I should probably have adjusted that. I didn't, because I guess maybe I would throw something in here if you had 4 or 5. It should have been like 3 and then 3 to 6 or something like that. But you get the point. All right, personal thoughts. Again, in all or nothing. You have to basically make sure I know what you're thinking about what's happening. This, unless you're writing an entire story about yourself in the future, you're not going to be able to easily do the I feel, I think kind of thing. But when I finish reading the story, I should know what you think about all of it. This is also part of why your own words matters. Okay. Tied into text and term, you have to tie everything together. There is a reason this is a semester-long paper, project, story, pick your term. We're learning a lot throughout the entire term. You need to tie it all together. That does not mean you say, like, and according to week 3 in the text we covered, because that has no place in your story. But I do expect you to cover things like how the temperature is warming, how the state of Georgia, known as the peach state, doesn't even grow a whole lot of peaches anymore. We grow more blueberries because we've turned into an oven. This kind of thing. Show that you have learned something throughout the term, which brings us down here. We now have conclusion. You have to have a proper ending to your story. And at the end of this, I have to know that you had a prediction of how the planet and the environment's going to be in the next few years based on what has been happening. Match the evidence shown throughout the paper. You cannot just randomly say, okay, and then everything's absolutely wonderful and, blah, 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 everything's perfect. Everything's balanced. No one has asthma anymore. Not unless you have shown how bad it got and what it took to get back into a better place. I have to be able to follow the logical train. Half points if the prediction and or matching of the evidence was not fully done. So you kind of led up to it, but you didn't really explain it. And then if you just have some flipping conclusion that doesn't match anything else, you're not getting any points. The last part here, critical thinking, which in all of those other steps I've told you, that's all critical thinking. So I have to see that you have actually thought every step through. So this is just the last part having to do with that. If you look down here, level 4 perfect is 200 points. That is 2 letter grades. Level 3, 150. Level 2, 100, 1 letter grade. Level 1, 50. Level 0, 0. So if you turn nothing in, obviously you're getting 0 points. If you do something very last minute and it does not actually cover this, it is possible to turn in something at the very last minute and still get 0 points. So I highly, 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 highly recommend taking the time to really look at the rubric while you are writing. Okay. All right. So that comes here. So again, you access that just by clicking paper 2026. That's the rubric we were just looking at. This, the paper details, goes back to the first thing we looked at. And in just a moment, I am going to post this video in the papers and such area, and I will link the video right here so you will have everything. I think that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. You're about to have spring break. I want you to get some rest, chill out, goof off, do your own thing. But if you are the kind of person who likes to use your time while you have it, not a bad time to start jotting down like an outline or an idea that you have. And you are always welcome to email me, message me, come by my office here in the admin building on the Waycross campus, room 162, and chat with me about ideas. I have no problem with bouncing ideas back and forth. So if you've got an idea and you want my opinion, ask. Over spring break, if you want to work on the paper, go for it. If you have questions about it, email me. I will still be randomly checking the email. I just might take a day or two where I don't look at it at all. So if you message me over spring break and I don't respond within a day or two, it's because I decided to have an electronics free day or two because I think everyone needs to do that randomly. Okay, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Um, I guess your homework could be to look up dystopian future movies. I highly recommend Tank Girl. Love the comic, fun movie. It covers some of the stuff, but Wally seriously covers everything. Um, I guess that's it. So peace out.